Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience. Technology never works the same. So I guess we will get started now and, we'll take it from here. So welcome to today's workshop. Today we are talking about outstanding performance reviews. So I'm very excited about this because I know that performance reviews can be a bit challenging sometimes. So you get to ask all the questions that you need, and we'll get to kind of see what's going on with you and performance reviews. So let's see. Just to review what we have done so far, we have so far had conversations about managing your boundaries at work, self-care for people that provide help. We have been building a very better organizational culture, conflicts management. We have learned about transitioning from worker to manage, and also how to manage and empower your team while you're keeping them accountable. Today, the next step is to learn how to provide reviews for your employees and also how to do reviews for yourself. So we'll move right into our conversation. The agenda for today is we will, as always, we will have kind of an intro little session in which people will introduce themselves and talk about what they're hoping for today. I have a couple of other questions and, of course, what we can expect on today's workshop and so on. I think most of the people that are here today have been able to, let's go back. Stop the share and make sure I see people. And then I'm going to share again. Not sure I see my participants.
The Consuelo dialed. If Consuelo logs in again, it'll show the number for her to dial.
She needs to pick that she doesn't want to use, she wants to dial in, and then a screen will come up saying dial this number. I'm not sure. I kind of like don't manage that part of the process. Is it in the email, Katie?
We only send a link.
Yes.
Oh.
And when you get the link,
Link on her phone. Sure, Wi-Fi. Yeah, she connects using her phone. Use the link to use her phone. Right. So the link in the email. She can open her email up on her phone, and then click the link on her phone. That's spell. Let's know that I find the other ever have the calling numbers.
because when you sign in, usually comes up with the calling numbers. What's going on today? On this open. No, my son, my share. There, now I cannot. It's just that I can't see my participants. And I don't know why it's doing that. It's always something. Okay. I'm not gonna be able to see you guys until I resolve this, but let's continue because this technology is taking too much of our time. I blame the heat for it. So
Blame air quality too.
air quality, all of that. So, because most of you have been here already at this presentation, you know already the things that you can expect from the conversation, and you know the fact that we are going to have a break at the middle of the presentation and so on. So I guess what I wanted to share with you is how the agenda is going to work this time. So we will be doing our typical intros, and we're going to talk about what we expect for today's presentation. But also we are going to talk briefly, we're going to divide the presentation in two areas. First, we're going to talk about performance reviews for you as an employee and what to do when you are being reviewed. And then after the break, we will talk about performance reviews for you as a supervisor and what do you do in those cases. So hopefully you'll be able to get direction for both sides. So as usual, I have questions for the beginning. I'll go through our people that are connected remotely and the people that are in the room. And my questions to you today is, first, your first name. The question is, what did you do differently since our last presentation? I love when people share how they have modified the way they do things. And also, if you don't want to answer that question, you can tell us how do you feel or what do you think about performance reviews. So we'll kind of like get it started in the room, so that then we can move to the group. So Lisa and Becky, tell me who wants to.
That's it's been a challenging month. Lots of conflicts. And I've just kind of been working to gauge people to pick the right time to speak about conflicts and how to resolve them together, as opposed to just blurting it out. Just kind of more introspection and trying to choose the right time and the right moment to have an effective conversation.
Thank you. Somebody was telling me yesterday that this last month things have been a little bit weird, and it has to do with the moon and things that are astrological. So they were asking me what was my experience, and I said, yeah, a lot of issues, but that's my job, so I like it. Yeah, the more the better for me. How about you?
Okay, life. I found being more aware was, I've always been a watcher of people because I was always shy. So now that I participate more in the business world, I'm finding that I'm being more aware of myself. Like that, looking in the mirror, how I'm talking to people, how I'm listening more. In fact, that's the biggest secret I've learned. Years on my listening more than I talk.
Yeah.
Where that's it. Other than I can.
Is there anything you want to add, Katie?
No, just that I'm in a new area and I work with our redevelopment. See? Okay.
Uh-huh. Great. Okay, Sharon has her camera on, so I'm going to ask her first. Hey, we missed you here. You need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, no, I said I miss you guys too. As you see, I look a mess because I've been a mess. But I I appreciate so far because like the like Lisa with my other position that I always talk about is like the conflict. I had to get into that situation where I had to speak to the individual and all the other people around her to kind of help us, control the conflict by doing some conflict resolution, like you talk about some of the things that you have shared with us so far. just like putting things on the table and discussing and communicate. It's really just back to communication. So that's been working, and I've been utilizing the things that you've been teaching so far. So, so far the person is back and we just see how it goes. It's been quiet.
Thank you for sharing, Sharon. What do you think about performance reviews?
Performance reviews, I don't know. I always felt like it never happened enough.
Uh-huh.
Like, I don't think it happens enough. I don't think people in general, and maybe because back in my younger years, I think it was an important part of things. I was just on the phone with one of my clients who were telling me that she was demoted in the sense of not getting enough hours or whatever. Take it with a grain of salt because I don't know how truthful it is, because they have looked over her. You know how when you go in the store, like they ask you, could you take a credit card? What do you think about the customer service? And because she's not doing that, and they looked and see that that was part of her performance review, they are not giving her a raise or they reduced her hours. So there's a little bit of, I'm an iffy buddy, but I really think like it's not really given like it used to. It's kind of like people are not being acknowledged for that as much as they used to.
Thank you for sharing that, because we have a little bit of feedback regarding how often a performance review needs to happen. So we'll be touching on that.
Good.
Thank you. I have a Ritu on the line. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right.
Yes, you are. Thank you for asking. My name is Ritu. I work for Norwalk, Stanford Grassroots Tennis and Education. This is my second workshop with the non-capacity building, which has been really helpful. So I appreciate the time everyone puts into this. As far as what I think about performance reviews, I do also wear the HR hat for our nonprofit as of last November. So I'm learning a lot about this space. It's not necessarily what I was trained in. So I've learned a lot. I think the performance reviews are very important. What I'm seeing is that there's a lot of information that's not clear. I think it's important to know what expectations are of any level of employee in any place in our organization. And once that's agreed upon and understood by both sides, I think it's important that the performance evaluations reflect that, so that if employees are doing a stellar job and going above and beyond, that it's very clear promotions and raises are in order. Or if you see gaps, then you can identify opportunities for growth and development, and perhaps have a meaningful but hard conversation around perhaps why maybe you don't get promoted or why you didn't get a bonus or whatever the case is. And I think this whole process is not documented or paid enough attention to.
Yeah, it's kind of the things we do last minute. Oh, performance reviews are coming, and everybody's like, oh, why do we have to do this? We are so busy all the time, and it always catches up with you, right? I just want to acknowledge that before we move into the next person, is Consuelo first is not able to connect with us still. What I'm gonna do when we have a break, because I don't want to be kind of cutting the conversation right now. When we have a break, I will sign out and have you all guys sign in again. And we're gonna get the process started again, because today we're having some issues with technology.
The only issue with that,
yes, we will have to have it in 2 parts and then attach it. Yeah, but we have to figure it out, because some people are not getting the full, we don't get the full thing here. We don't get to see our participants, and then, but I'm sure there is a program out there that will help you put both videos together. Send it to your people. Portia, do you want to share?
Yes. So I can get back to eating my lunch and listen. So this is my first training. I think reviews are very important. Like Rudy, I'm sorry if I'm not saying your name right, the lady that was just speaking. I agree. It's a time for people to know what is expected. I've always enjoyed reviews because I've always had great reviews. And it was well earned. I think, you know, when you work hard, it's kind of like your moment to shine. And it was always, I never been one for like praises out loud, but my review time was the time where I could really celebrate myself. And also have someone identify areas that I need to work in, because we all have blind spots that we ourselves are not aware of, but someone else can see it. So I'm always looking forward to that. I like knowing about my blind spots. So I think reviews should just be consistent. I think if it is, you know, once a year or twice a year, it should happen. It should be taken seriously, and you need to put time in it. When I give reviews, I tend to put a lot of time and effort. And anyone I'm reviewing, I expect them to put in the time and effort to think, because, you know, it takes me a minute to think about all that I've done in a span of time and kind of put that together. I could never rely on my boss to know everything I've done. So it was my time to really sit and like showcase all of the stuff that I may not have verbalized or people may have been unaware of doing, you know, that year.
Thank you for that feedback. I think we can learn a lot from you today. So anything that you want to share throughout the conversation, please do. I think you have the right outlook and mindset for what a performance review should be. So thank you, thank you. Let's see. Oh, she was able to log in? Okay, awesome. Let's see, I have Evelyn. Hi, Evelyn, how are you? Can you, do you have a minute to share?
Did you call on me?
Yes,
Yvonne?
Evelyn, yes.
hi.
Great.
Yeah, so the last training that I took with you was the transitioning from worker to manager. And I got a lot of great tips on whether I want to really consider that for myself. So I've been contemplating, evaluating, and assessing if that's been very helpful. The training was helpful in doing that. And so thank you for that. Yeah, all the trainings have been good reminders, good refreshers. The one before that, which was the building a better organization culture, has helped me a lot too, because I transferred from one center to the other, so I'm in transition. So, you know, when you transition like that, it's always like a new beginning because it's not the same people. So
Right.
it's been really helpful. So thank
Yeah,
you.
just into a new team really kind of can get you reset, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Evelyn.
And
Hey, Consuelo.
about the performance, I like evaluations because it kind of keeps me on track on the goals that I'm supposed to be working on. And like Portia shared, it's the moment to really put everything out there that you've been working hard for, and you know, that one-on-one with your boss, which, you know, doesn't happen often all the time while you're doing your work. So I enjoy reviews.
Very cool. Thank you,
Thank
Evelyn.
you. Thank you.
Consuelo, thank you for being persistent and getting in the camera. So I will let you just get acquainted, and perhaps Maria wants to share today. Maria April,
Hi,
how are you?
good. How's everybody? I hope everybody's okay, right? I mean, good, very good. We're gonna enjoy this lovely weather. This is my third training, and in talking about reviews, I think they are necessary and important. I think that gives you both the employer and the employee a chance to give feedback and see where things are. if we are on track with goals, if we need to change the goals or adjust them. I think they are necessary and important.
How is your experience with reviews? Have you have a good experience, or how do they tend to be for you?
I actually love reviews because in my previous job, I was the one who I would request the review and a raise, and I every time got it, so I love them.
Okay, good. A successful person with reviews here. Okay, we have, let's see, Valeria de Souza. Valeria, do you want to share? She doesn't have, okay, she doesn't have a camera or microphone, so she'll be mostly listening. Thank you for letting us know. Let's see, who else do we have? I'll call one more person. Lisa Cooper.
Hi.
Good to see you.
This is, yep, this is like I believe my fourth workshop. And like I said, I've enjoyed all of them. Learned a lot and tried to apply what I learned. When it comes to reviews, I like them. I kind of agree with Portia. In a sense, it's like my time to shine, like to be seen, hopefully to be heard. And I've always gotten great reviews. But it's kind of really letting my supervisor really hopefully see my work and what I can do.
Great. It's so nice to hear that people have good experiences with reviews. It's refreshing. All right, so I'm gonna, just because of time, I'm gonna move into the presentation, but welcome you all to participate throughout the conversation. I think what we're gonna do is mostly for the first part, we'll go through the slides and then we'll engage more into conversation when we go into the second part, which by then I will be able to have the volume over here working and all. So let's go back to these slides. I'm gonna share that. And let's move on. All right. So, performance reviews. Performance reviews, as you all know, are formal opportunities to review a period of time and set goals for the next period. Some companies and organizations do them once a year. Some other organizations do them twice a year. It all depends. The most common is to get one review a year. So depending on how many reviews you get, the objective of each review may be a little bit different. They can be very time consuming, especially for supervisors. If they have 5 direct reports that they need to write a review for, it can take a lot of time. There are many modalities to do performance reviews. One of them that people really want to get into are the 360s, those ones that people are reviewed not only by the supervisor, but also by their peers. And you have the ability to review your supervisors as well. Those can be even more time consuming. And but in my experience, when we get to speak about 360s, it's mostly the junior staff that wants 360s. And I think that this is kind of like an opportunity for them to speak about their supervisors. So, but we're going to talk about alternative ways that junior staff can accomplish that kind of situation without having to do a formal review. But if a regular review is very time consuming, 360s are much more time consuming. So, but they are very popular. People like them. Also, in the reviews is an opportunity to discuss any salary promotions improvements, if they are relevant to that time. Other things that happen with performance reviews is that they can good opportunity to demonstrate good communication with your supervisor. So if we are working in building a good culture in which the organization really puts an emphasis on having clear and open communication, this can be a really good situation for embracing, right, difficult conversations. because we don't know really where the conversation is going to land, depending on what kind of feedback we are getting. And the other piece is that, it is important for reviews to be very effective is to use your detailed job description, right? When you are reviewing and when you're being reviewed, to go over what kind of feedback you're gonna give. And also, if you have had already one review with your organization, use it as a guideline, right? Because in your previous review, you probably will have set up goals and things that you wanted to accomplish. So you will kind of go back and see how you're doing in relationship to the goals, or the things that you needed to change, improve, or the things that you were doing really well, and just review them and work on a very good review for yourself. So the self-review can be challenging at times for people. You have to see it and kind of like analyze for yourself, what was it that you did in the last year, on the last 6 months, and whether you were effective at doing the work that you were entrusted with. So, like I said, it can be hard to review yourself, and people tend to be self-critical. So one of the things I see is that sometimes supervisors get very convoluted on how am I going to say this to this person. And when the person gives you their self-review, sometimes they can be harder on themselves than the supervisor is. But we also have the cases in which people are overconfident about, what they accomplish and what they can do. We see that a lot on the younger generations. I don't want to make it like a kind of like, oh, younger generation is like that. This is not like a general rule for everybody. But I think that, we did raise our kids being more overconfident and giving them medals and little trophies for the things that they were accomplishing. So their own perception of what they are accomplishing may be a little bit different of what their supervisors experience. So when a person is overconfident, that can be a lot more challenging than when a person is highly overcritic of themselves. Because if somebody, has high level for themselves and what they need to accomplish, it's easy as a supervisor to build their confidence, but it's harder for people that are already overconfident to kind of see reality. So as a person that is doing your self-review as an employee, we must remember that no one is perfect. We can all improve. I know that many of us, especially if you're a supervisor, probably got to a point in your career in which you do very well because you tend to be a person that likes perfection or get things done very well, right? But perfection doesn't exist, and we must remember that we can all improve and always look at performance reviews in that way. Like some of the attendees were saying, it's an important opportunity to see how we can continue growing, because we all grow through life until, some people don't grow that much, but
Yeah.
but let's say it's a journey and we are learning new things until the day we die. It can be challenging at times to have a candid conversation with your supervisor if you don't have a good relationship and a good communication style with your supervisor already. So when you are not, don't have that communication going as an employee with your supervisor, sometimes you may be surprised at the things you may hear in a conversation, things that you didn't see coming. That's why it's so important to invest on having this good communication in the office or at work. And we'll talk a little bit about more about that, about your responsibility as a supervisor and in keeping those conversations going. Sometimes you may be pleasantly surprised by good feedback, something you weren't expecting. That's always nice. And like I said before, if your relationship with your supervisor has not been open, there is a lot of room for defensiveness. Now, one of the things that I want to say about defensiveness is that it's normal to be defensive. I think I've said that before. It's like a defense mechanism we have, right? We feel like get feelings when we hear something about ourselves, and our body will react immediately with feelings that want to push that away. So being defensive is normal. And, sometimes people would say to you, which is the wrong thing to say, don't get defensive. And it's okay. You can take a break. You can wait a few minutes, try to look at the situation in a different way. But I want to kind of normalize being defensive because it's natural. It happens to all of us. Another piece, when you are doing your reviews, is to say, where do I get started, right? Where do I start with this performance review that I have for myself? So like I said before, a great way to start is by reviewing your previous performance reviews. You can even review previous performance reviews from other jobs that you may have had in the past. Because the person who you are, it may be different in one organization or in one company versus another, but there are going to be patterns, and you're going to know that those patterns exist within yourself. So it's important just kind of like to start gathering your thoughts around performance review. Take a look at what you have had in the past. Also, you want to know what you accomplish, oh, look, I found my participants here. Okay, that's good. I know that I have it. Okay, so what you accomplished since the last time you had a review, you may want to make a list of those things. What has changed? And also, it's good to follow up on things that you have been reported earlier. So what happens with performance reviews is that most of people think about performance review only when they're coming. What I want to invite you to do is really think about your performance often. You can set up that for you every month, kind of do a little bit of like journaling on the things that you have accomplished and the things you have done well. You may have a little notepad in one of the drawers in your office and kind of be like, okay, let me get a notepad because I was able to accomplish this with this project. Because what happens to most people when they are doing their own performance review or when they are reviewing someone else is that they only remember what happened the last 3 months of the year leading to the performance. You don't remember what you did at the beginning. You don't remember how you changed, what the kind of things you accomplished. So as an employee, it's very important. And this is part of being kind of like responsible for ourselves, right? To kind of keep track of the things we do well. And also keep track of the things that we may have failed at doing optimally. And see where we can change it. So if you divide your accomplishments into categories, it could be easier also to think about what are the things that you have accomplished. And I'm going to give you a few suggestions for categories in the next slide. But also dividing areas of growth into categories. Instead of putting like a whole story, this is all the things that you do, giving clarity to yourself and also to your supervisor. It is also important to think about challenges. Like we said before, and some of the participants here said, they are a great opportunity to learn more. And, it's important to get into this mentality of this is, we are all learning every day. We don't know everything. And this is a great opportunity for me to learn. When things don't work out, it's a great opportunity for you to learn. When things could be better, it's a great opportunity for you to learn. And when things are great, you still can learn. So once you have listed your list, you can make a summary to approach the conversation with a summary, because normally a performance review comes with different pieces. There is a written piece, and organizations do this differently. Some of them use ranking numbers to define the performance of a person. These are the expectations. And between 1 and 5, this is the number the person got. I'm not too fond of that system. I think it's better to ask meaningful questions and make performance reviews shorter, but have more of a conversation, right? So usually the way a performance review goes in an organization is that you have your self-review, then your supervisor does your review, and then you have a meeting to go over the things you discuss. So when I say, once you have your list and make a summary, that's the piece that you want to be ready for. So that when you have a conversation with your supervisor, you are really able to kind of have a summary of how the last year or the last 6 months went for you. Other things that are oh, here are categories that I'm going to give you as tips that you can divide your performance reviewing. The first one is interpersonal abilities. Okay, what is it that we are able to use to our advantage with our emotional intelligence? Next, skills. What are the skills you have improved since your last review? And what are the new skills that you acquire since the last review? I have examples, by the way. I won't leave you hanging like this. What is the new skills, right? Next, what are your talents? Your talents are the potentials you have, right? The things that you do really well and that your employer can use as an ability, as your ability to improve and kind of hone in what is it that you do real well. And then actions and behaviors. The problem with performance reviews is that they tend to focus on action and behaviors. And when you tend to focus on that, there is more room to focus on the negative things because those are the things that people remember the most. So dividing a little bit, right? What is it that I've done really well or the things that I can improve from the past? What is my potential today? What are the things that I believe I am able to accomplish? And then what could the future look like for me? Could be a good way to think about it, right? Past, present, and future. So that we can see, you know, where we are going. Because performance reviews shouldn't be only about your past performance. They should be about where you're going and where do you want to get. Have more clarity around that. So organize your data in ways that will help your supervisor easily digest the information you are providing, right? It makes the writing of your review easier. It also makes the conversation that you're going to have with your supervisor easier. Important, show evidence and provide examples. And that's why you need to keep that little journal going, right? Because sometimes you know you're really good at something, but you can't think of a specific thing you did that demonstrate that area. But if you have something going, if you're writing, or you know, and you're doing self-introspection, there are more chances that you can show with a real example what your improvement. So now we're going to see a few examples of what this could look like. Okay, interpersonal abilities. For example, a good interpersonal ability is to be responsive, right? So you want to say, personally, I'm a very responsive person. I respond to emails in a timely manner. And I call all clients back within 48 hours. That's a clear example of the things that you do that shows that you are responsive. I have a list that I'll share with you about interpersonal abilities that could help you brainstorm. Skills. For example, improve skills. I already know how to use Excel, but in these last 6 months, I learned 3 functions that help me, right, produce better reports. As you can see by my last report, I had all these graphics and I had all this analysis that I wasn't able to give you before, and it's because I learned these new tools in Excel. So that shows that you have improved a skill. New skill. I took a training project for management and I got certified in it. And I applied what I learned when planning for our summer program. There is a clear example of how somebody maybe took a class, learn a new skill, and then how they apply it for something that is beneficial for the organization and the company. So those are the kind of examples that you may want to list out. These are very generic. When you have your list and you do your own analysis, you'll be able to pinpoint to something specific you did with them. The report we did last semester, the program we just ran, the program that I just managed to put together last week, that kind of thing, right? You can be a lot more specific about the things that you have been able to accomplish. For talents, I'm a talented writer and I use my strong skills when communicating with partners, right? I do I have this natural talent to organize. And you can see this in the last project we had, this last presentation that we had for individuals that we are serving. I was able to organize all the speakers, and I was able to kind of like roll with it in a very concise way. So those are kind of things that you can talk about, what your talents are. The talents are the things that you naturally do well, and we all have those. Actions and behaviors, which is what people tend to focus on, but you still should talk about it, right? In my last review, you pointed out that punctuality was something I needed to work on. Since we had that conversation now, I usually arrive to the office and meetings at least 5 minutes early. You talk about the behavior that you corrected, the behavior that changed. Here is a list that I will send you with the PowerPoints of interpersonal abilities that can help you think about things that you can say about yourself. So this is kind of in alphabetical order, very easy to review. They have accuracy, empathy, enthusiasm, flexibility, decision-making, dealing with the stress. All these are things that we want to talk about. And so sometimes when we think about like putting our resume together, right? These are the things that we're looking for, but these are the same things that you should be using to work on your performance review and communicating with your supervisor. The other one is competencies. And competencies talk about skills specifically, right? And so here is an example of different competencies that somebody could have. I have a longer list, like I said, that it goes from A to Z of different competencies that could be applicable for your job, right? You have accounting abilities, you have financial abilities, you have HR abilities, all these skills that you have gained over the years that you can use also for your review. So it's good to go through a list. Maybe it's not 100% complete, but it will help you think about things and get in the right frame of mind when you're talking about these things. So I think it is 1:18, and I think the next slide is our break. Oh no, I have one more. Look at me, I'm full of information. So, no, absolutely overconfident. Okay, so other things you can think about when you are having a review. First, be ready to ask questions, right? If you have something that has been lingering all year, and this is the moment for you to ask. So be ready to ask questions. Asking questions make a conversation even more productive and even more interesting. So be ready with questions. Be ready to express concerns, right? And ask for concerns. For example, you can ask your boss, do you have any concerns about, my ability to do Y or Z? Or you can express your own concerns when it comes to your team and how things could be done better. Again, it provides you with the opportunity to have a more intelligent kind of conversation. You can also have ready some suggestions that you have for the team and the organization. Those are always welcome. Okay, not always. Some supervisors don't welcome feedback. But if you have a good relationship and you feel that you can be heard, these are good times also to kind of speak about the things that you think could be done better. When I work on performance reviews with people, we always ask them for their feedback. So it's important that they are ready, because otherwise they get caught on the spot and they don't know what to say. And then the next week they are like, oh, I should have said this, right? So it's important for you to be ready if there are any suggestions for the team, especially if you get asked, right? Another one is prepare the notes in advance and review them before the meeting, right? You can have your notes with you, but many times we go to kind of like meetings and we say, oh, I could have said all these things and I missed the opportunity. So having notes and review them in advance is kind of a good thing to have. This is your opportunity to shine as an employee, right? So you can really, really talk about the things that you do really well, especially if you're overconfident like me. But if you are not improving, you're only cheating yourself. Right? Nobody, like most people, want to go to work and have certain feel about their work in certain way that is meaningful for them, that allows them to grow. yes, there is people that they go to work and they just want to do the same thing over and over again, so they can pay their, get their paycheck and enjoy the rest of their personal life, right? And enjoy their family. I believe that people that go to work like that is only because they haven't found a job that they really like. And follow up, that's super important. We'll be talking about that more too. Once the review has settled, follow up with your supervisor, right? Make sure that you're keeping your supervisor on track. As an employee, that's important to do because your supervisor has many things that, you know, they are working on. And, you know, it's good that you come up with the initiative to follow up with them. And establish weekly or bi-weekly meeting with your supervisor to kind of like stay in touch and so on. There are a few things that we're going to talk about when we move into the next part of the presentation, but I have to tell you, usually performance reviews, if they're happening only once a year and you are not having these meetings with your employees or with your supervisors throughout the year, they can be a great fiasco because you will find out things that you were supposed to know way in advance. So if your supervisor is not supervising you, or if you're not staying in touch with them, by the time you get to your performance review, it may be too late to fix the things that you could have worked on throughout the year. So if your supervisor doesn't have the time or the ability to kind of like say, okay, let's keep meeting and looking at your, take it as your own initiative and make sure you maintain that conversation with them. We all have the power, right? We have talked about that. We all have the power to change our environment. If your supervisor is not responsive, well, then you know that there are other decisions that you should be making or other suggestions that you should be making to the team. But it's important that you keep going with that follow-up. So now it's happening. We will go for our 7-minute break, which is perfect because it's 1:23. So we will be back at 1:30. And I'll try to fix my technology issues in the meantime. I won't sign out because people got in. So just stay and I'll stop the recording and try to fix this in the meantime. Okay, I'll see you in 7 minutes.
You plugged into the same.
It's from Rick. Gonna go back for a second. Yeah, I'll lower the volume. I'll lower the volume. Here. Sometimes it's not even like I can't even like put the volume out on the TV. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back and let's touch base with everybody and let's have a few comments on what we heard. I'm sorry, I usually like to do my presentations more interactive. And I usually do ask a lot of questions, but because we were having issues with the sound, I didn't. So I would love to hear from you, what are your impressions so far? And if you have any tips that you can contribute to the group and things that you feel is important to do when you are getting, doing your own performance review as an employee. So anybody that wants to speak up, please do.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, thank you, Portia. I was wondering if anybody wants to comment on what we talked about on the previous section and, you know, whether you have any tips or things that you would like to share with the group regarding doing your self-performance review and your approach as an employee.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that you hit some really good points, especially when people are overconfident. I have witnessed like coworkers who had great reviews from a previous supervisor, and then they have a new supervisor and the review isn't as stellar as before, and how that kind of creates a little uneasiness.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something, you know, I think that's something that should be discussed more You know, I think it's often a challenge when you're a new supervisor stepping in and then you have to do reviews and you haven't really had enough time to meet with the staff to really get to know, you know, what they're capable of. And I've been in that predicament more than once. I never had an issue with reviews. I try to be very fair. But I have worked with coworkers and, you know, that overconfidence with having such great reviews, and then someone comes in and they tell you you're not so great, and, and having to deal with that not so greatness.
Yes, that can be hard.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Portia. Rita, do you want to share something?
Yeah, I have something I'd like to add. I think from a employee's perspective, doing our own reviews to then submit to a supervisor. I think, you know, something that I want to do a better job of, and I try to encourage others, is throughout the year to like sort of almost keep notes in a folder. A year goes by quickly, you know, especially in nonprofits, we wear so many different hats and there's so much going on so quickly. I often find like towards the end of the year, like I might have forgotten some things that are important to discuss. So I think it's good to sort of keep a journal throughout the year.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I agree with you. Anybody else would like to share thoughts, ideas, things that we didn't mention, or things that resonate with them from what we talked about so far?
I just want to say that Valeria did make a comment early on. Even though she doesn't have, you know, video or audio, she did type a response about reviews in the chat room.
Awesome. Thank you so much for giving me the heads up there. Let's see. Valeria, I see. She was saying that the desktop doesn't work, but this is her first training she's attended, and she thinks that performance reviews are different for everyone. It could be seen as good and bad. For some, it can be seen as nerve-wracking and awkward, and to others, it could be in trying to find someone's strengths and weaknesses. Thank you so much for that comment, and thank you, Portia, for pointing it out. I think that, yes, that's very true. The performance reviews can be very different for different kind of people, and really the solution to that is kind of normalize it, right? Kind of bring it to a point in which people feel that a performance review is a piece of what you do as an employee. It's not the whole picture. In other words, they happen once or twice a year. There is a lot more to you than this review. There is a lot of room for you to grow, and there is a lot of room also to kind of like express yourself and what are your goals. One of the things that nonprofits talk about, I don't know if regular companies do as well, they talk about how important it is, if you have a bus, to have the right people in the bus and have the people sit on the right seat. So the fact that an employee may not be stellar on one of the things that they're, you know, given inside their job description doesn't mean that they can be really good at something else. And so it is important for supervisors, and I think that's the big piece that we're going to talk about. It's kind of like get to know your employee, because if you see that your employee has other strengths that may not necessarily be a good match for what they have to do with you in that job, you can take a look and see where this employee could fit better. Is there a better place in the organization where they could be doing a better job they have more potential for? For example, some people are quiet and you can't put them as a receptionist because it's not their strength, right? You give them a job that it requires more thinking and so on. Some other people are very expressive and they are doing jobs that, you know, require a lot of thinking and quiet time. So there is, you know, it is important as a supervisor that you get to know the people that you're working with and see, you know, where do they fit better. It takes kind of a generous approach. This person that I'm working with is not only the outreach coordinator. No, there is a lot more to that person. There is a lot more that makes them whole. And, it's important to get to see where the fits are better. Any other comments that anybody would like to share? Anybody here want to comment for something? If you don't have any comments, it's fine. I'm welcome. Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's talk about performance review for supervisors. And I have a lot of tips for supervisors to be. Sharon, did you want to say something? No? Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I was just getting a lot of calls in. So I was trying
I
to-
see. Awesome. Well, so I have a lot of tips, but this shouldn't come as a surprise for you because some of the tips I'm gonna give today are things that we have talked about before in our conversations. So let's see. Important things for supervisors to think about. First of all, focusing on what your employees do well is easy. I think most of the time. You think about those things and you tend to want to talk about that better because everybody feels uncomfortable about raising things that are not necessarily, the best qualities of the employee. But it's important when you are doing an employee performance review is to identify areas requiring improvement and also that you provide tangible recommendations and how you expect them to improve, right? Just saying, oh, you could be better at communicating is not enough. You, as a supervisor, you have to provide clear idea of what communicating means to you, right? And how do you expect them to do better in that area? For an underperforming employee, and sometimes underperformance employees that are overconfident, right? It is important to speak directly and not dance around the subject. If you are not direct, they will not understand the seriousness of the situation. So many of us have, I had a picture here. I don't know what happened with it. Anyway, many of us are used to using the sandwich approach. You say one good thing, and then you say what is not so good, and then you end up with a good, comment. I find that approach can be confusing for people at times because, and I'm not saying that not to use it, but use it carefully because if you start trying to correct an employee on something that they are not particularly good at, but you are kind of like saying, oh, well, this works out really well, but you could improve in this, but overall you are fantastic. That's what the employee is going to remember. That's, last thing that they're going to remember, and they're going to forget or will not understand clearly that your message is to ask them to improve on something. It's much better if you make you start with a positive comment and say your strengths are on this area, and then you say, this is something that can require improvement. Here are my recommendations on how you can improve, and end it there, right? So important, you're not only talking about the problem, you're also offering a solution. And that's, I encourage you all to use that in your daily lives. When you see a problem, something that is not working well, think about the possible solution and bring it to the table. It will give the person a better way to take in your feedback, right? And also will help move on from this is an issue to how can we do it better. Another one important to consider for supervisors is that unaddressed underperformance today can lead to a more time-consuming process that you don't want to get yourself into. And that's the performance improvement plan. I don't know if everybody's familiar with it. I have a performance improvement plan that I can show you and share with you if you don't have one. But by the time you get to a performance improvement plan, it is already too late. You are trying to correct things that should have been corrected during the time this person was working with you. Okay, I'm not gonna discard that sometimes you work with people that you are telling them already what they need to improve and do not improve anyway. That's another situation, right? But if you had the opportunity to kind of speak with people throughout the year and you didn't address the underperformance, by the time you want to address it, it may be too late. the person is not going to change. There's going to be feelings. It's going to be there. One thing I see all the time, people blame the company, right? They blame the company on their underperformance. They don't have the resources. They don't do this. Management doesn't understand me. They don't listen to me, right? Because there's not, they haven't received this feedback often and soon enough. And always use examples. Examples are very important. Being vague on what you want people to understand is just not, it's not going to cut it. You have to give examples of how things that have happened, whether they are good or bad, when did they happen and how. So one thing that is important that you know as a supervisor, busy supervisor, very busy person, right? Is that the review process is tremendously important for employees. Employees really care about what happens on their performance review. So you can't leave it for last minute. You can't be like winging it. People care about it. They work on preparing their self-performance and they are really looking forward to the day they meet with you and they can go over things. It has to do with growing. It has to do with feeling approved, feeling that their job is appreciated, feeling that maybe perhaps they have the chance to get a raise or maybe be promoted to a different position. Employees really, really do care about it. So it's important that you give it the importance that is necessary. And it's not the task that is, being done last minute because you had all this other pile of work that needed to get done and you didn't get to it. So here are 20 tips. 20 is a lot on how to deliver a review effectively. First, basic, be on time and show up prepared. All right, don't wing it. Like make sure you have reserved the time in your calendar and you have prepared for this performance process. Like I said, it's very important for employees and they will, they will resent you if you don't do it well. Make sure you hold your calls, turn your phone off and avoid interruptions. Put a paper on your door. Like if you have an open door policy and people are used to coming to your door all the time, no interruptions, please. Okay? We will lose the conversation. You and your employee will feel like they are not super like that important to you, and for you to dedicate the time they need to do these things they do with you only once a year or twice a year. Be kind, polite, and more importantly, clear. Be conscious of cognitive biases and assumptions. What I usually say to people when they are doing, whether they are handling conflict management or whether they are handling performance reviews or anything that has to do with interpersonal skills, give yourself the chance to look at this person like you are looking for them for the first time in your life. Again, I said, I think I mixed up that a little bit. Well, what I'm saying is kind of like, look at the person with brand new eyes. Although you know them, you know how they work, you know how they perform, give yourself the chance to enter the conversation with a clean slate. That's very important. And forget about your assumptions and the things that you feel are going to happen based on what you know of this person. If you go into a meeting already thinking that this person is going to be, defensive, that's what's going to happen. So try to go and walk into that meeting with a clear slate. Have a meeting checklist. Scheme and review an agenda and review it in the beginning. Say, okay, so this is what is going to happen. This is how we conduct the review. First, I hear from you or whatever method you decide. This is just an example. First, I hear from you and what you have to say about yourself. Then I give you my feedback and then we have time to open up a conversation and talk about the things that we think, we need to kind of like review together. But always give them kind of like overview how the meeting is gonna go. Why? Because if the person doesn't know what's gonna happen, they will tend to interrupt you more in the process because they are anxious. They don't know what is coming next. So like I said before, let the employee know how you will proceed and that they will have time to ask questions. Very important that they know they will have time to ask questions. Hopefully you can let them know also that you would like to go through the review without having questions raised yet. And if they have any questions, just to make a note so that you can go back to that. And if you get interrupted by the employee, like I said before, ask them to hold down the thought because you want to finish what you wanted to say before they have their say. That's important because as people become anxious about a review and so on, they may jump in at you and want to refuse some things that you say, or want to ensure some of the things that you say. But if you can't finish your thought, it's really, really hard to get the whole message out, right? I have to use that a lot. I always talk about my husband, but I have to use that a lot with my husband. Say, let me finish, the poor guy, if he knew. But let me finish what I'm saying first, because what you're responding to is not my final point. It's not where, this is like the story, but I'm gonna get somewhere and I need you to listen until the end, right? Okay, always ask for clarification. This is something we have talked about when, in the other conversations we have had. If you don't understand something, if you feel that you are interpreting something in a different way, ask for clarification. And so the way to ask for clarification is just to make sure I understood you correctly, and then you repeat in your own words what the person told you, and wait, to hear whether that was actually the intent of what they were saying. Like I said, repeat what you heard to be sure you understood correctly, and make sure that the employee understood correctly, and offer opportunities for clarifying questions for themselves too. So very easy. Ask, do you have any clarifying questions? Is this clear for you? And so on. Open up for conversation. Maintain focus on what you're saying. This is not a negotiation. It's not like a back and forth opportunity. Just stay focused on what you're saying so that you can get your message across. Listen closely and with curiosity. Curiosity is a great tool. We have said that before. Asking questions is a great tool to keep the conversation going, and also eliminate from your head all those thoughts that come out automatically. If you ask questions, and you remain curious, you will have the opportunity to kind of like get out of your own head and learn more about the person and what's going on with them. Provide honest advice, and do not make any promises. You can talk about your intentions and what you want for the employee but never promise anything, because people will come back to it. Good examples, for example, professional development. Somebody may want a lot of professional development, but you don't know whether you have money in the budget for it. So you may say, yes, I want to support you with your professional development, yet have to clarify whether we have the funds, or whether I need to apply for a grant to get the funds, or whether I need to consider for next year. But I hear you. And I understand this is important for you. But never make any promises on the spot. That will put you in a bad place. Think about the role and how the role may change over time. What do they need and how can you help? When you look at an employee, it's always important to think of them as their future selves as well. What is it that this person is going? Some people come out automatically as future leaders. You can see it in their personalities, in the way they communicate, in the things that they talk about. More quiet people also could be great leaders, but you gotta think about it as a supervisor. So I'm gonna say something good about my husband now. He says that when he works with employees, he always thinks about his replacement. Who is it that is going to replace me when I leave? And when you are a supervisor, right, it is important to think eventually, I may move up in the organization and I may need a person to run this department, or I may retire, or something may happen. How do I invest time, right, and thoughts on these people that are working with me to discover who could be the next one in the line, or who could be the person that is going to keep our group steady, right? That no matter what happens, that person will maintain the team. And that's important. Just kind of like look at people in that way. Where is it that they're going? Where are they growing? And what is my perception? Of course, you're going to have a conversation with them about it as well when you talk about professional development, but also for yourself. Sometimes people can't see their own potential and you can see it. So, and you can raise those things when you're talking with them. Convey information, not emotions. When you're doing a review, it's an examples about what happened and how it happened, not how it makes you feel, right? Sometimes the employee can make you feel angry. Sometimes they can make you have a lot of feelings about exacerbated. My God, again, they're doing it again. But in reality, the only thing that will keep that conversation going the right way is that you talk about examples and things that actually information. And we talked about that a little bit when we talk about communication in our communication at work presentation. Do not indulge into negativity. If your employee starts expressing a lot of negative feelings, acknowledge it, but then move on and, change the tone of the conversation if you can. Okay, so one thing about acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is very important, right? People have feelings and they need to know that you know that you appreciate the fact that they have feelings. If you acknowledge that they have feelings about things, they will more likely to move on. If they don't feel heard and they are like, these injustices are happening to me and my supervisor is like, they do not care, right? They're less likely to move on. So it is important when you acknowledge to say, okay, I understand why you feel this way. Yet I would like us to focus on solutions, on a positive outcome. What is it that we can do and we have the power to do to make things better for you and for the team? Use positive words. Reframe your sentences to convey opportunities for growth instead of shortcomings. That's an excellent thing to do in your everyday life. Change negative sentences to positive sentences. Yesterday, when we were speaking about the lunar thing with that person that was commenting, we were talking about what is it when you put thoughts into, when you do, I forgot the name, but you put thoughts into the universe so they come back to you. Yeah, it has a name.
Boomerang. Boomerang. Boomerang.
Yeah, I think that's a name for it. Or you or when you put intentions into the universe, you make your intentions. Yeah. Exactly. You put it out into the universe.
I think you're talking about, they say karma.
Karma,
Is that karma?
Yeah, karma is more related to actions. But it's when you put your thought into the universe, so it happens.
Declarations.
Declarations. Yay. Thank you. Declarations.
Declaration.
Yeah, you're declaring what you want to happen. Okay, when you are declaring what you want to happen, don't put out there the things that you don't want to happen. Because you'll get that. Exactly. You put out there what you want to happen, right? So let's say you are in the dating scene and you don't want someone that is like stingy and very tall. Don't say I don't want someone. Say I want somebody that is more my height and that is generous, as opposed to saying the negative. So it's the same exercise. You know, when you are using positive words and you are putting what you want in the universe and out in the conversation with your employee, you are most likely to make more effect than when you're talking about what is negative and what is it that you don't want. Make sure your comments have a clear explanation. Again, use examples. I can't emphasize it enough. If you show up to a meeting and you don't, like in which you want to correct an employee and you don't have examples, half of your battle is lost. I'm telling you, you gotta come up with concrete examples. So before you have any conversations, you have to get that together. And think, how would you feel if you were rated this way for yourself, right? So I'd love to open up the floor for comments from people. Any other tips that you guys can offer? Anything that resonated with you well? Okay, I
have-
think, yeah, let's go with Portia and then Sharon.
Okay.
Okay, Portia, go ahead.
I'm sorry I'm doing so much talking. I feel like, you know, other people, I'm not giving other people a chance. I like your idea about writing down notes about employees throughout the year, but it can be very difficult. It's hard to keep up notes about ourselves, things that we've done, keeping track of examples. So, you know, doing that with the team is quite difficult. But what I do think is important is that when a supervisor is performing an interview, it is absolutely crucial not to just focus on, say, the last few months, or like you said, it can't all be good, have that halo effect. Because I think that is a pitfall with some supervisors. Something could have happened during that review period, and that's the only focal point, and then everything else is negated, and that's not fair.
Thank you. Absolutely. Sharon?
Yes, I was gonna comment on the part where you were sharing that, you know, how you said you look for the people that would replace you when you leave. That's like one of my biggest thing, is because I think I grow so attached to like caring, the caring part of the job, that you do kind of say, okay, if I was to leave, I wouldn't mind having an input on who would replace me, because you got to look for the people that would be caring enough to want to get the job done the way, you know, it needs to be done. Not necessarily the way you're doing it, but the way it should be done. And so in reviewing and saying that, you know, to promote someone, those are the kind of people that you would look for to take over management.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. And not everybody is meant to be a manager, right? Yeah. Some people are meant to be, for example, leaders within their team, or be the supporting people within their teams. And you know, that's why we have to promote like more growth to the side as well, because not everybody wants to go up, like we said, we talked about when we had our becoming a manager kind of a workshop. Thank you, thank you. Anyone else wants to share? No? All right. So here's a few other things that you should do. And one of the things that I want to emphasize is that, you know, every organization and every company do their own kind of performance review process. Like I said before, some of them do ratings with comments. Some of them just have conversations. I kind of like asking 3 or 4 questions that the employee will answer, and then I will answer exactly the same question. And then we can compare our answers, because I believe it is more meaningful conversation. Yet when you have those kind of performance reviews, you may escape some of the behaviors that you want to correct as well. Like, for example, be in the office on time, be respectful to your coworkers. You know, when you are in a virtual team, please pay attention, don't multitask, those kind of things that can be missed because they are not in a checklist, right? So having the checklist as a backup is a good thing if you want to address it. There's, you know, different ways of doing performance reviews. But anyway, independently of the system that you use, setting goals is very important. And it's important that those goals are aligned with what your team is trying to accomplish. So there is the personal growth for the person, but also what is it that we're trying to accomplish as a team? So kind of like the goals need to trickle down into the staff. This is what we want to accomplish. And so that can really be worked out and better talked about in the follow-up conversations. So while your performance reviews are important, they are no longer enough to evaluate a person that you are working with. It is important to hold more conversations that are honest, in which you can give feedback to your employee. One of the things we learned at some of our previous kind of workshop, which was making your team accountable, right? Is that if you have immediate feedback and there are emotions, you can wait a little bit to give them back and make sure not too much time goes by, but also that is timely, but also that you don't do it in the heat of the moment so that emotions don't take over. But having these frequent conversations, whether it's in a way in which you set up a meeting with your employee every other week or every 3 weeks, or whether it is in a more informal and spontaneous way, that they are happening. The other piece is that if you have more meetings with people, they help you track their performance goal and the role in the team and adjust as necessary. Waiting a whole year for tracking a goal with an employee is too long. Even waiting 6 months is too long. The same goes for when you're measuring the results of the work that you're doing. Like if you have goals for your team, letting a full 4-month period go by is just too long. By the time you realize something went wrong and you are not meeting your goals, it's already too late. The other piece is it's important to keep open lines of communication, to be open to engage employees and manage performance all the time. If you manage performance all the time, your team is going to be more used to being managed that way. It won't come as a surprise. If you don't do it often, there are more chances that your team will be resistant to receive that feedback once or twice a year. So it's part of the culture. It's the culture that you're building. And it is a lot of work, but also remember that being a supervisor is your job, and that should be your main job. I know that for all of us, being a supervisor is not the only thing we do, that we also have to do a lot of works and projects ourselves. But if you were to consider the most important part of your job and how you're going to define your success, is that your team is successful. And the only way that you're going to do that is by empowering your team and making sure that they feel that they have clear guidance on what they have to do. So the last thing I want to say about that is that when you are providing, constant feedback to people, they feel like they kind of like can open up and get back to you more and have their opinion heard as well. So it's a two-way kind of a street. So 2 very important pieces in dealing with employees are helping your employee grow, and that you can do through a professional development plan so that they can acquire the skills that you need them to do much better. And the other piece is a performance improvement plan, which is a plan that really you use when people have not been responding and becoming, accountable for their work. So the easiest one is the professional development plan, but it's important that when you're working with your employee, and this can be part of their goals, you have clarity on what they want and you help them get clarity as well. A lot of people are working and they don't know where they want to go yet. It's especially important of newer employees, not necessarily younger employees, but newer employees who are kind of getting their feet wet and they don't know where they want to go yet. So, and as we talked about in communication and managing employees, the easiest part is to provide people with the skills they need to do their job better and feel competent. The most difficult part is to change someone's personality in the whole realm of how you work with people. So when you work on a professional development plan, the things that you can fix are the knowledge they have, the skills, and their ability. Their ability is the natural talent mixed with the skill, right? How able are you to do this work? I need you to pull out data. How good are you with data and manipulating and moving data around so you can look at it in different ways? Are you good with Excel? Is that a skill you need? Is that you are naturally talented at that? you really do well looking at data, or when you see data, it's for you, it's like numbers floating in your head and like in front of you and nothing really happens, right? What are gaps that are difficult and to fix? The attitude a person has over the job, whether there is negativity, and whether there is lack of intrinsic motivation. Now, maybe some of you are psychologists, but most of us are not, right? So we can only do so much to motivate people to gain that intrinsic motivation that they need in their lives. Sometimes you're going to have to be able to recognize that what people have, the lack of self-confidence or the lack of motivation, may come with roots that go beyond what you can do as a supervisor, things that may have happened to them throughout their lives, their childhood, and the circumstances that they grew up in, and the things that they learned when they were young about themselves. I'm going to quickly check on the chat here because I have a few. Yes, affirmations and law of attraction. That was our previous conversation. So just to go into the professional development plan, I will show you few things that you can ask when you're working with your employees in developing their professional plan. So let's see. The importance about the professional development plan is to find balance between what is their inspiration, their career inspiration, and the skill building they need to do their job better. Sometimes inspiration is not enough. You know, a lot of us are dreamers and we want to do all these great things, but if we don't have the skills, it's a little bit difficult to get there, right? Now, it is important that when you determine what is it that you need your employee to grow, is something that they can improve that will apply to the job they're doing with you, right? If I am a cook, right? But my inspirations are plants and flowers, and we work in banquet place, right? I mean, I'm not gonna send you to take a class into flower arrangement that is not gonna help you doing your work in the kitchen. So then is when you may want to reconsider whether that person is in the right place, right? But if the real inspiration of the employee really has to do with something that is different than the job that is required to do, it's important to have that conversation and see where that person wants to go. There may be a place for them, but professional development is about also getting the skills that they need to do the job that they are doing with you. So determine specific areas where you want the employee to improve and do better performance. Identify how this development area impacts their job performance. Like I said before, it is in a good use of your focus, developing areas that won't impact the employee's performance in the job they are doing with you. And describe, right, what is the gap in the desired outcome that you have for that employee. For example, if you have someone that really needs to improve their computer skills, right, you can identify areas that will say, I believe that if you were able to create this data from this program, but you're having difficulties with this other program that we also need you to handle, there is a piece of training that you need. Because you have demonstrated that you have abilities on one side, perhaps there is training missing that you need to complete in order to get you ready to do the other piece of work. So what knowledge will help the employees perform to the desired level? What skills and abilities won't help the employee achieve the desired performance? And are other factors that are part of the performance as well, right? If let's say the person does not have a natural ability or likeness of using data and programs, maybe there could be that this is not the right type of job for them. So here is a design of what a performance, development plan could look like for somebody and the kind of questions that you may want to ask. First, of course, you want to keep record. So you want to know the name of the person you spoke to, the date, and what was the role. And then asking questions like, what are your career goals? What are your how do you see yourself, or what do you see yourself doing in 12 months from now? And how do you see yourself, or what do you see yourself doing in 5 years from now? That way you will get information knowing where the person wants to go. I've had employees that tell me, no, it's like, I really like this job, but I see myself doing something totally different, right? I want to go back to school and be a writer. I want to live off the grid and go and raise cows. Perfectly fine. But that's going to help you if you know what the person wants to go and what they want to accomplish, to know how much you invest in them and in their professional development. The other piece is that you can use these kind of questions also when you are interviewing people for your job. Many times I had situations in which I was hiring somebody for a, let's say, counseling job or something like that, but the person wanted to be a teacher. Their dream was to work with children. I knew that if I hired this person, they were going to be only a temporary employee, independently of their abilities. Maybe they were great, but those are things that you have to have clarity on. Where is the person going? And what do they see themselves doing a year from now and 5 years from now, or 3 years? You decide what is the right question. And if people don't know yet, it's okay. That's an honest answer. The other piece is, what are the skills or gaps that they need to accomplish? For example, a great skill, gap skill happens a lot is knowing how to manage people. If I have an employee that I'm thinking could become a good manager, and they have the desire to be a good manager, but they don't have the skills, that is something that is easily resolvable by providing them with the training that they need. Then you want to put it on them. You want to ask them, what actions would you take to address the gaps? When people come up with their own ideas, they are more likely to engage and have buy-in in the plan. So once you have identified this gap on skills that people need, you can go kind of move ahead and say, okay, how do you think we can address this? You are giving them empowerment. You are making them make their own decisions and figure out how is it going to be. People may have different solutions. A person may say, oh, I need to take a class. I'm really good at taking classes and I think I can learn a lot. Another person may say, I would love to shadow you and see how you do your job, because I'm a person that learns better by doing than by listening to someone talk. And then, very important, how would you evaluate if you have been successful at acquiring this skill? How would you know that how would you know that this skill was acquired and that you're doing better? And these are questions that you have to ask your employee beforehand when you are doing this plan with them, because it will help them think long-term, right? Sometimes we don't have the answers. It's fine. Making up an answer or starting thinking about it is what is gold, right? Start thinking ahead. If I take this class, if I grow professional in this sense, how will I know that I do better? And they will, people will know that they will be more successful. Okay, I've talked a lot. Let's see if people have any suggestions for this piece. Nothing? Okay. So when you think about a professional development plan, I think we talked about this already. In fact, yeah. We are not finished yet. I do have a performance improvement plan that I want to show you, but I didn't put it in the PowerPoint because it's too large to show in a slide. That tells you how complicated performance improvement plans are, right? If you have to use pages and pages to try to improve an employee that hasn't been performing well, I'm sure that just thinking about going through that will get you to be a better manager and try to keep up with your employee as you go and try to correct things that need to be corrected. Because performance improvement plans are time consuming, and they also don't put people in the right mindset. When a person sees that a performance improvement plan is coming, they probably know that they're on the last possible drop. You know, they are ready to, like, their supervisor is ready to get rid of them. So one of my advices is that when you have a low performing employee, is to introduce the performance improvement plan earlier than you would think, because then it will give the person the real opportunity to improve, versus let's see if you can do this because I'm really thinking about letting you go. And so if you don't like kind of do it, you're out, right? You want to give that person, if you sincerely want to help that person one more time, you want to introduce this early and not give them things that look like it, but they're not. Okay, so let me open up and share this performance improvement. Look, I have my passwords here now. Okay, let's see. Okay, so here's the performance improvement plan. It's a very long document that talks about what is it that you wanna accomplish with your employee. Has a list of what the suggested improvements are, right? And what are the comments that come from the supervisor, right? What are the things that you're bringing up that really the person needs to work with? Also, you can add additional comments considering the performance proof evaluation. And it is important that you keep record that you have presented this improvement plan to employees. Now, when you present the plan, it doesn't mean that the person has to accept the plan. When you have them sign, it really means that they understand and have read the plan, right? Doesn't mean I agree with what you say. What it means is, okay, you presented this plan to me. So there is a lot of room for conversation there, because I have had performance improvement plans, and after I'm done presenting it, the person says, I don't agree with anything you said. So then you realign and say, I understand. And, we gotta get through this to work together to get you to a better place. So I really need just your acknowledgement here saying that this item has been, that you have been presented with this plan. Because now we are at the point in which performance need to improve fast, really fast. It is also important that before you present a performance improvement plan, you make a timeline for yourselves and you decide what is it that you are expecting. How fast do you want the person to improve? Is it a month? Is it 3 weeks? Are you going to give them 3 months? What is the urgency that this person really improves their performance? Let's see. And then you have to and this is where the work comes, right? It's a lot of work because you have to divide it into pieces that you are going to measure to make sure that this person is getting to what they need. For example, let's go on areas of improvement, and we can make an example for that. An area of improvement for an employee could be, I would really like you to put more effort in communicating better with your team and letting them know when the deadlines are coming and receiving their feedback. Communication improvement, right? What are the results? I can list a number of results. For example, the monthly report is going to be done on time. Another one, your coworkers will receive your request a week before the report is due. Another one, you will be prepared in advance 3 weeks before with the format that you're going to use for the report so that I can review it and approve for you to send, and so on. It's very specific of what is it that you will want this person to do. And then what is it that is going to be the due date for it? The due dates are very important. And as we talked before, due dates are not about like by the end of the week. No, it's by Friday at noon. You gotta be super specific. It brings better results if you are super specific about when you need something, right? And then what are the results you are expecting? Results are about, better communication with your team. Your team will not complain about not getting the documents on time. The team will work better. The work will flow better. And then when you review, let's say a week or 2 weeks after with the employee, you have the opportunity to put in this performance plan the progress that has been made by the employee. The thing about this tool is that it needs to be constantly updated, right? So you're going to be presenting a plan, and you're going to have a version of the plan that you presented at first, and then you're going to have different versions of each time you met with the employee to go over whether they improved their performance or not, and what was the progress. You want to keep record of that. Also, another tool that you can use is kind of create a timeline on when do you want and expect this to happen, like when and what is going to happen. That's another way that you can go on it. But as you can see, this process requires a lot of time. And I have to say, I have never had an employee who went through a performance plan review that didn't end up quitting shortly after. Coincidence? I don't know. We have done it with the best intentions of that person really improving, but I think that it becomes so overwhelming for people to be, kind of that people are keeping track of their actions so closely that they prefer to quit. It's just absolutely overwhelming for people. So it really is a last tool. You can use part of it to kind of work with people to perform their improvements. I think as a manager, the main thing is really that you make sure that you are providing clear direction for people, clear results. This is what I want you to accomplish. This is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to measure the result. And this is when I need it by. Whether you decide you're going to supervise that person every 2 weeks, every week, it depends on how urgent you need this performance to improve. So that's kind of a performance improvement plan. I'm so scared of it, but I kind of like prefer that, doing these conversations that are one-on-one more often than having to go through this process, because it's tremendously time consuming. I was wondering if anybody of you have experiences doing performance improvement plans, and how has it gone for you? No? Nobody has done a performance improvement plan?
We had an employee that should have had one, so I can talk a little bit about that. The organization didn't do a great job of communicating and documenting along the way what the disconnect was. So the employee felt she was doing a knockout job, and she clearly wasn't meeting expectations. And so it was very hard for us to document. And then what happened is we didn't have any document to support being able to contest the unemployment collection on her part, because you can contest it if the employee didn't do their job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there are a few things that we dread. Keeping record of something that happened is just like, but if you have the record, right, there are more
Yeah.
chances you're gonna have backup for what happened. A great way to keep record of things is that, and I use that a lot, and because it serves two purposes, is after you have met with an employee and you have like kind of corrected performance, or you want something to improve, is to follow up with an email to that employee saying, this is what we talked about. And these are the things we agree that you were going to do, and this is how I'm going to support you. It helps the employee to have clarity and to have record of their own conversation in case they need to refer to it and know what you are expecting from them. But it also serves as proof that that conversation happened. And that's a great way to keep record. And, you know, it's more motivating because you're following up with the employee and telling them what happened, right? So that's a good way to go about it. But yes, keeping record and journaling about what the employee does or does good or does bad or what their accomplishments are is like the extra thing that nobody wants to do. But if you do it, you'll be very thankful that you did, because it will help you and will make your job easier. And your job won't be like sloppy, right? When you are providing this feedback to them. So thank you for that feedback, Ritu. Anybody else who would like to comment or have any questions? Something that we didn't talk about today that you would like to touch on, or maybe may want me to consider for future conversations? No? Okay, seems like people are good. So we are taking a break in August. Any questions you may have, please send me an email. I kind of, when we send the slides, you have my contact information. And in September, we are going to talk about the nonprofit cycle. I have a special speaker that will come and talk about it. We will be facilitating the conversation together. But I think for a lot of people, especially if they're queer people to the nonprofit world, it's very hard to understand what is the relationship of, you know, the board to the nonprofit organization, which we're going to talk about on a following one. And what is like the natural cycle of a nonprofit? How do nonprofits get started? And what can you expect as the organizations grow? So if you have any new employees that don't understand nonprofits very well, please invite them to come with you to the training so that they can get to learn and get a bigger understanding of the environment they are working in. As usual, we will be sending a survey following up, the link to the recording of the training, and also the additional documents I said I was going to share with you guys, which are 3: the professional development plan, the list of skills, and also the performance improvement plan model that I use, which you can modify. So thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful summer, the rest of the summer. Enjoy August, and we will see you back in September. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.